If you're a leader in human services right now, you know there's this constant pressure. This one phrase you hear everywhere: you have to be data-driven. And it's way more than just a buzzword, right? It's really seen as the key to actually succeeding in a world that's getting more and more complex.
And there's a really good reason for all that pressure. The research is pretty clear on this one. Organizations that are truly data-driven are a full 30% more likely to hit their goals. That's a huge advantage. It can literally be the difference between thriving and just scraping by. But this is where things get tricky.
And this quote right here, it gets to the heart of the problem. See, most organizations have tons of data. You've got reports coming out of your ears, spreadsheets, maybe even some dashboards. But just having that stuff doesn't mean you're making better decisions. And that gap, the one between having data and actually using it, that's the real dilemma we're going to unpack.
So let's talk about that gap. Because on one hand, you have this absolute need to use data to survive. But on the other hand, you've got the daily, grinding reality of trying to make that happen. And for human services, that gap isn't just big, it's actually getting bigger.
To really put this into perspective, think about it like this. It's like the whole human services sector is trying to farm with a manual data plow while everyone else has automated tractors. The source material we're looking at suggests the industry is a staggering 40 years behind other sectors when it comes to technology. That is a massive, massive handicap.
So what does this look like in the real world, day to day? Well, your data's all over the place, right? It's in your EHR, your finance system, your HR platform, none of which talk to each other. This creates these deep data silos. So to get any kind of complete picture, your staff are stuck manually pulling reports and trying to stitch them together, which takes forever and is full of errors. And of course, all this is happening in an environment of chronic underfunding, which makes it almost impossible to actually prove your outcomes. It's a tough spot to be in.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the answer? What are we all aiming for? The ideal, the goal for every single organization is to create what's called a single source of truth. It's that one place where all the different pieces of the puzzle finally come together.
Now, the fancy technical term for this is enterprise business intelligence. But don't let the jargon fool you. This isn't about making more reports. It's a whole new way of doing things. It's about connecting all your raw data from every single one of those silos and turning it into one unified view that gives you real, honest-to-goodness insights you can actually act on.
So how do you organize all this information so it actually makes sense? Well, one of the most effective ways is what's called a balanced scorecard. The whole idea is to stop looking at things in isolation. You start connecting your financial data, like your revenue cycle, with your operational data, like program performance. You link your HR data with your quality and compliance metrics. For the first time, you get this complete 360-degree view of your organization's health.
All right, so once an organization commits to this journey, you immediately come to this massive fork in the road. And this is probably the biggest strategic decision you'll have to make with some really big consequences down the line.
And it all boils down to this one fundamental question. Do we try to build all of this data infrastructure ourselves from scratch, or do we find a specialist partner who already knows how to do this, somebody who lives and breathes this stuff every single day? Let's take a look at what each of those paths really means.
Okay, let's explore path number 1, the in-house build. This is the path of doing it all yourself, creating a system that's perfectly tailored to you. But a real-world example from our source material gives us a pretty stark look at what that actually takes.
So there was this $70 million organization that went down this road, and the time it took them to get from their messy spreadsheets to a fully automated dashboard system was 5 full years. Think about that. 5 years to get the insights they needed.
And what about the team required to pull this off? Well, they started with an IT team of 5 people and had to double it to 10 just to build and maintain the system. We're talking about highly specialized and, frankly, very hard to find talent.
So what's the price tag on a team like that? Their annual budget for just the IT staff salaries was over $500,000. And get this, that doesn't even count the money they had to spend on the software licenses, the data warehousing, the hosting, or the security. Which brings us to the really tough question every leader has to ask themselves. Can you really afford to wait 5 years and spend millions of dollars just to get these insights? For a lot of providers, maybe even most, the answer is a pretty clear and simple no. And that brings us to the other path.
Path number 2 is all about partnership. It's about finding a firm that's already built the airplane, so you can focus on what you do best, which is flying it. This path is really built on 3 things: specialization, community, and most importantly, speed.
And when you put these two paths side by side, the trade-offs become incredibly clear. That 5+ year timeline to build it yourself, it becomes just 3 to 4 months per module with a partner. That $500,000+ annual cost, it can be up to 80% less. Instead of spending years trying to hire and keep these niche experts, you get that expertise on day one. And maybe most importantly, your focus stays where it should be, on your mission, not on becoming a software development company. At the end of the day, the partnership path just offers these huge advantages in speed and efficiency. You get way more implemented, way faster. You get plugged into a whole community of other providers who are sharing what works. And you get to automate 90% of that manual data wrangling, which frees up your team to finally start working with the data instead of just working on it.
Now, this is really important. Whether you decide to build it yourself or go with a partner, you have to understand one thing. Picking the technology is just the start. The harder, and frankly, more important work is everything that comes next.
Because a true data-driven transformation, it's about people. It's about your process. It's about your culture. The technology is just an enabler, a really powerful one for sure, but it's not a magic wand. You still have to build the strategy, the culture, and the skills to actually use these new tools effectively.
And that kind of change needs a roadmap. As you can see here, it involves a bunch of critical steps. You have to create a dedicated data team, define a clear strategy, and set up governance to make sure your data is trustworthy. But just as important is the people side of things, fostering data literacy throughout your organization and building a culture where making decisions with data becomes the new normal.
And so that's where we'll leave it. Choosing your technology path, build versus partner, is a huge, huge decision, but it's only half the journey. The real question you should be walking away with is this: is your organization ready for the other half? Are you ready to do the deep cultural work that's required? Because that's where the real transformation actually happens.